legislature are making up. But let me give you one example why I think this is a horribly bad thing to do. Do you think you can get 3 people who are upset with the legislator to agree on a particular issue, or that a legislator's done something that he shouldn't do?
Yes. Do I think I could get 3 people?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, any 3 people in this state can file a complaint with this commission. Anybody. So anybody who's upset can file a complaint. I think what you're creating here is another government bureaucracy that this particular initiative tries to force the legislature to fund the first year $472,000. And I think you're going to create an opportunity for people who are upset with the legislator to keep this commission just churning and burning constantly. Now, the way it is right now, you have to have 3 legislators bring that complaint. They have to, based on what they know or what they learn about a situation, they have to make an initial determination about whether that's a problem. In this particular case, any 3 people can bring a complaint. I think that opens the door to all kinds of problems.
Okay, so now that's one issue. And I want to take a moment and have David respond to that very specific piece of the legislation where citizens can bring an action. Okay?
May I ask a question first?
Same line of thinking here.
Yes. If we have all the opportunities he's talking to us about, and that they're doing their job, then why are they taking money from companies for their campaigns?
And again, that will have to be a sort of a separate thing. Let's
Okay.
If you don't mind, let's focus just a moment on, because this is a question that needs to be answered
Right.
in terms of what citizens' rights are and how this plays out.
At the present time, there is no restriction on campaign contributions in Utah whatsoever. So anyone, any company, any union can contribute as much as they wish to any political campaign, except for a federal election, and that's not against the law. So there's, I mean, anyone who accepts these contributions at the present time is not violating the law. With respect to the issue of a complaint that's filed by 3 people, one of the problems that the legislature has is that the number of investigations of unethical conduct in the last 30 years could be counted on probably one hand. The number of formal disciplinary hearings that have been held by either the House or the Senate in history is 0. And one of the reasons for this is that the way the legislature has established its rules of procedure in ethics proceedings is that the evidentiary burden required to establish whether a violation has taken place is subject to a very tricky process. And the current rules provide for a preliminary procedure which is closed to the public and which is to determine whether there is probable cause to move to a formal disciplinary hearing. Under the legislative rules currently, the standard of proof to establish whether there should be a further formal hearing is reasonable proof, probable cause. It's the lowest standard of evidence that the law recognizes. But there's a procedure in the rules that says if the co-chairs of the ethics committee of either house and the accused legislator agree, then the legislator can waive the formal disciplinary hearing and the matter will be resolved on the basis of the preliminary hearing. However, the evidentiary standard to be used in that preliminary hearing shifts. And it shifts to a far higher, clear and convincing standard, which in my view and experience is virtually impossible to establish unless you have a videotape of some misconduct. And so the way this is presently structured, you have an 8-member legislative committee, evenly divided between Republicans and Democrats. There are 2 co-chairs provided in the rules for that committee. Now, most of us, when we think of a co-chair, assume that co-chair means a position of equal authority. And so this stipulated agreement that I referred to about waiving a formal disciplinary hearing under the rules has to be agreed to by the co-chairs and the legislator. However, the legislature has taken a position that the term co-chairs means, in this case, because the Republicans are in a majority, it means the Republican chair. And so the Republican chair presides, conducts, makes rulings, and can engage in this process without the participation of the other co-chair. So to get back to why we believe this is necessary is simply because over time, and I think these slides that Rob put up reveal a number of instances where there have been serious issues of legislator misconduct that have never been brought to any kind of formal resolution because it is inconvenient, it's impolitic for legislators to complain against each other. And I can tell you from my experience with the legislative ethics proceedings last year that there is a climate of fear if legislators step forward and file these complaints. They fear retribution from their fellows and from their elected legislative leadership. And that fear is palpable.
Before I go, Representative Vickers, did you have a question earlier? I kind of skipped over you.
Oh, you're fine.
You're okay?
Hi, I'm Evan Vickers from Cedar City in Iron County, and I am currently in my first term in the House of Representatives, so a lot of the ethics issues and that are new to me. My previous experience was 12 years in the City Council and then on various national boards dealing with my professional. I'm a pharmacist, I'm a business owner, just kind of give you the short background. As I've read through the summary and initiatives, there's a number of things that I like. I mean, for example, you talk about caps on contribution camps. I don't have a problem with that at all. You know, the requirement to have ethics education every year, that's really good. The question was asked, why do we take money from lobbyists? When you run a campaign, no matter how you cut it, it's expensive. Some campaigns are going to be more expensive than others, depending on where you're at, the climate, your challenger, those types of things. So it does take money to run a campaign. So you use your own. My personal experience is that I use my own funds to the certain extent I can. I use contributions from friends and associates, and then there are some lobbyist money that comes in. Now, I have not personally taken any large donations that really, up to this point, of course, I'm pretty green, so I would say this. I have not accepted money that I felt in any way affected my vote. No, that may not be true of everyone, but that's kind of been my experience. So hopefully that kind of answers your question there. And some campaigns, are $30,000, $40,000 campaigns. You get on the Wasatch Front and get some of those. So it's not cheap. And so to try to raise that from personal funds, then that kind of goes back to the argument, well, only the rich guy can run. And you don't want that. You want to be, if it is purely a citizen legislature, you want to have any good citizen that has the time to be able to raise those funds to run. So, and I don't necessarily, I don't mind taking some funds, from a lobbyist or from a PAC or from a group, but I certainly shy away from large contributions because that could. Money from someone you believe in. Yeah. So anyway, and just as I read through it, maybe just some things, and I noticed that you mentioned that there was quite a few states that had set up these types of commissions, and maybe so you've probably looked at this, but the first thing that glared to me was, well, it does appear like it bypasses the judicial process, the legislative process. So it does appear, as Brad mentioned, that it sets up maybe a separate arm. We're hearing a lot of things about czars. Now that it appears to have that kind of look to it. So maybe you can clarify that for me. And then the cost. $500,000 in a year when we're fighting a big budget deficit. So those are just some things as I've looked at it, I wondered. And then the other one is I was just sitting here tonight thinking, and you mentioned, has there been thoughts about how the commission would handle what you might call punitive claims? That maybe three guys are just ticked off at somebody and they keep bringing up some stupid little claim against a legislator that may not necessarily have a lot of validity to. So
Representative Vickers, let's make sure, you've got two or three things out there.
Sure.